Hey everybody, welcome to this episode. Like I said, I'm not going to be numbering them anymore. I don't think. I think I'm just going to be calling them whatever they are, because depending on when I air it, or sorry, whenever I record it, and then whenever I post it, it's probably not going to meet up every time. Sometimes some of the videos I do make, I'm like, I'm not really happy with it, so I kind of scrap it. So if it was already like, say, episode 137, it would kind of screw up the continuity. So I think going forward, I think, obviously, they're new episodes because they show up. So, and it'll say like how soon it was made. So that's probably the easiest way. There's no real reason to number them anymore. So let's continue with our nostalgia of 1984. Remember, this is the 40-year reunion of all that stuff, being that it's 2024. So let's go back to 1984. We talked about the Sears Wish book. Let's go into Saturday morning cartoons and a bit into the syndication, because I don't think I needed to make two separate episodes. Even there's probably a lot to talk about with Saturday morning cartoons, and there's a lot to talk about the syndicated shows, which didn't show up on Saturday morning, because three really popular ones of the 80s were in syndication. They weren't on Saturday mornings, which is weird because I've seen people talk about this is why it makes me think that some of the people who talk about like the toy reviews, and they're talking about like back in the day, back in the 80s, and a lot of the stuff that they mention that they were like really into is like either late 80s or early 90s. So I'm assuming that they're probably younger than me. Not by a lot, but I mean, I'm thinking they're like the tail end of the millennials, maybe. Or not even, well, yeah, like the early millennials, like people born 81. If you're born in 81 and you're 10, it's 91, or you're 9, it's 90. So it seems like those are the people that seem to be talking about stuff, because they'll mention like, oh yeah, I loved Saturday morning cartoons like Transformers and G.I. Joe. It's like, yeah, those weren't on Saturday mornings. It wasn't part of the Saturday morning lineup. I mean, I didn't know at the time the difference between syndicated network TV. I mean, I kind of got it, but as I got older and into high school and stuff, then I started realizing, oh yeah, there's these UHF stations. Not the movie, by the way, but great movie, by the way. Anyways, not the movie, but the UHF stations. Because if anybody remembers back in the day, the reason you had two dials on your TV was, the first dial was usually, you set it for channel, like for us it was channel 2, which I think was ABC, channel 4 was NBC, and CBS was channel 7. So we had also channel 2 news, channel 4 news, channel 7 news. And then you could get channel 9, which I think was the Canadian station, the Toronto station. I can't remember what their call letters were. Channel 52, which, by the way, started, I didn't know that started to 1984. I thought it was older than that. That's our PBS station, Public Broadcasting System, was Channel 52. And then we had a local Detroit station as well. So was 20 and 50, because those were our two main UHF stations. Channel 20, which I think was WXON, and I think 50 was WDIV, or vice versa, I can't remember, but Channel 20, Channel 50, and those were the two main UHF stations that would play the syndicated stuff. I think it was Channel 50 played Transformers starting in 84 on Sunday mornings, I believe, and then I think they re-aired it another time until it went into reruns, and then anything that really was syndicated that went into reruns, that was your after school and your before school TV. Like when G.I. Joe, so towards the late 80s, G.I. Joe, the Transformers, Heathcliff, the Thundercats, Gem, those were all in syndication. And they all ended up in syndication in reruns, and that would be your after-school lineup, starting at usually, I think 2 was a little early. 2 o'clock, I think, they were still playing like Leave It to Beaver and stuff like that. I think it was 3 o'clock when the real power hour, the big blocks lasted. And that was 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, so basically 3 to 4, 4 to 5 on channel 20 and 50. And they had competing stuff, so you had to watch you had to pick what you wanted to watch. And for me, I stuck with Transformers, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Gem. Those are the four main ones that I watched. And Heathcliff. I think Heathcliff started at 2:30. I believe on channel 20. And then I think 20 I think played G.I. Joe and Transformers. I can't remember. It's hard. The thing is, I can't find any listings for those specific, unless you have old TV guides, because all of the Wikipedia listings that show like all the network lineups from from the dawn of the networks, they're all the network stations, and they don't really talk about the syndicated stations specifically because it was all regional. I mean, the networks would play across the U.S. and then and then the UHF stations were all regional. So, like I said, our UHF stations that would play, G.I. Joe and Transformers were on 20 and 50. That might have been in California. That was probably a different set of stations. But I'm assuming there were still UHF stations there. And then their main networks might not have been 2, 4, and 7. It could have been, I know, like up here in the Bay City area, as far as the Detroit area, the syndicate's even different. I think NBC is channel 5 up here. They get up channel 4 up here. I just remember 4, because 4 used to be our big, go for it, yeah. They used to have this commercial, go for it on channel 4. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Saturday morning cartoons. We'll talk about new shows that debuted in 84. Returning shows that, either started in 83 or older that were still ongoing. And then we'll talk about shows that didn't return. They either canceled or they just didn't return in reruns or what have you. Well, either they were canceled, so no new episodes, or they were already in reruns and then they stopped the reruns. Because a lot of the late 70s, early 80s cartoons that went into reruns on Saturday mornings, they would still play up until, a perfect example is Thundar the Barbarian, and I believe Thundar stopped in 84. I think 83, the end of 83 was the last of the reruns. And of course, a show that aired its first season usually debuted in the fall, and then that way by the end of the fall, that season was over, and then when they renewed it into the next year, they went to reruns. Or they would have a new season up. That's, they'd either make it a couple of, because not all of them, were only lasted one season. Some, like the Smurfs, let's see, I'm trying to think of other Saturday morning specific. Smurfs is the big one, because that ran, I think, 3 or 4 seasons. I can't remember exactly. Super Friends went on for a couple of seasons. But we'll get into that. So first thing I wanted to pop up here was this. This used to be a thing back when I was a kid. Now, these were the ads that they would show. And they were usually specifically for a network. So with this one, I believe this is the bird is NBC, because it's supposed to be an N. Yeah, I think so. This is NBC. Different networks would have different ads. I can't find the ABC or the CBS ads for 84, but this is the NBC ad that would run in comic books, and this one they had a 2-page spread. Usually they're only 1 page, but the networks had a lot of money, so they would do these big 2-page spreads on some of them. And this was, like I said, this was the 1984 NBC lineup. And I was collecting comics in the 84s when I really started to collect comics, so that's when I started to really notice these ads. And usually they'd start running these ads in the summer, sometimes in the spring, and it would let you know that, coming in, this fall for the new fall lineup for Saturday morning cartoons, they would play, this was the lineup, these were the shows. So some of them were new, some of them, again, were returning shows. As you can notice there, Spider-Man His Amazing Friends, that was definitely a returning show because it was on before, I think it was 81? I think it started in 81. So it kept going into reruns for a while. They only had I think 15 or 20 episodes, but they would play them in reruns. And then the Smurfs was another one there that I think that debuted in 83. So this would be its second season in '84. The Snorks were new, which are basically the Smurfs, underwater Smurfs, but the Snorks were new. Mr. T show, I believe, was new. It's funny, the kind of, Mr. T was so popular because of the A-Team and because of the Rocky movie, and WrestleMania, which she was in WrestleMania this year. I think 85 was WrestleMania 1, yeah. When Mr. T and Hulk Hogan, took on Piper and Orndorff and all those guys. But anyways, the Mr. T show, which I always thought it was supposed to be an A-Team show. It's like, no, it's just Mr. T and a bunch of kids. Okay. Kid Video, a lot of the... So here's the other thing. When it came to shows, I liked, the... Not the adult, because none of them were adult, but I liked the older kid shows. They were more action-oriented, with more serious characters, like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but more specifically stuff like, Transformers, G.I. Joe. I liked Heathcliff a lot. I know, and I love the Cadillac Cats. They used to always be on after school. I used to always love watching Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats. And I did watch the Smurfs because, like I said, I was so into Dungeons and Dragons at the time, and the Smurfs were quasi-fantasy, esque. So you would get kind of like the same thing with the Adventures of the Gummy Bears. It took place in like a medieval setting. To me, medieval anything was Dungeons and Dragons. It didn't matter. If it was the movie Excalibur, if it was anything, if it was medieval and there was fantasy elements like magic and stuff in it, it was just Dungeons and Dragons. So all sword and sorcery to me was just Dungeons and Dragons. So Smurfs were quasi Dungeons and Dragons in like a lighthearted kind of way. In my mind. It's all subjective there. So I watched the Smurfs. I watched the Snorks. I watched, like I said, the Disney's Adventures of the Gummy Bears. I think it was Channel 4. I think that aired. Well, this is Channel 4. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it aired in... I can't remember. Who is the Peacock? Is it... Or is that Channel 2? I get them all confused sometimes. We'll find out when we go to the listings. But I think the Gummy Bears may have debuted in '84, I think, or maybe it was '83. That one actually lasted a couple of seasons as well. But like the Shirt Tales, I kind of watched. I was kind of growing out of that. The Get Along Gang, I think, started this year, and it's just like I kind of like tangentially watched it. But if it interfered with another show, like a hardcore show, I wanted to watch it, all bets were off at that point. But if there's like nothing in between to fill that gap in my Saturday morning lineup, I would watch the kiddie shows. I called them the kiddie shows back then. It's like, I don't want to watch the kiddie shows. I want to watch the cool shows, the older kid shows. Anyways, so let's dive right in. Let's go right to the scheduling. So, like I said, here, I can't find, like I said, it would just be too difficult to have the syndicated schedules because they were syndicated. Like I said, they were regional. There'd be tons of different listings. But these are the main listings for all of the networks. Now, regardless of whatever station like if ABC in your town was Channel 6, in our town it was Channel 2. NBC was 4, and CBS was 7. So I'm going to ignore Monday through Friday because it's pretty much just for daytime TV, and Monday through Friday it's pretty much game shows, and it was for moms, stay-at-home moms. It's basically soap operas, talk shows, and game shows. Although, when you stay home sick, back in the 80s, if you stayed home sick during the week and didn't go to school, and your parents were either home or not home, what did you do? You'd eat a lot of chicken noodles, Campbell's chicken noodle soup, and you'd probably watch, you'd probably watch The Price is Right. You'd probably watch, the 25,000 Pyramid. You might watch Catch Facts of Life rerun. You might get a Silver Spoons rerun. But you probably in the afternoon, if you didn't fall asleep, You would probably be watching The Young and the Restless, Search for Tomorrow, Days of Our Lives, Another World, Santa Barbara, Guiding Light, General Hospital, All My Children, One Life to Live. This is the big power block here of soap operas. And my dad, because he wasn't working at this time, my dad was always home when I stayed home sick at my dad's house. And it was a lot of, my dad loved General Hospital, and what was it? Was it All My Children? No, Days of Our Lives. My dad was addicted to Days of Our Lives. And of course, in '84, I don't know if anybody remembers about Days of Our Lives, but they had that was during the Victor Kiriakis, and it's like, who is the mysterious guy becomes Steve, and then there was Patch, and what are the two, what's the bearded guy and his girlfriend, Michaela, I think was the girl, I can't remember who the guy was, but then Victor Kiriakis, he was like the J.R. Ewing of, if you know what that is, from Dallas. He was like the J.R. Ewing. He was like the rich, evil guy, who was always screwing with the rest of the families on Days of Our Lives. But, like I said, I can smell chicken noodle soup or hot dogs or pot pies, because I remember, I don't think that was on at the time. I think it was just the news. My dad used to pick me up from school, and I'd go home and I'd watch the news with my dad, and then he'd take me back to school for lunch. But usually when you're sick, I remember I'd be sleeping or like barely awake. You'd be like, oh God, you're either really sick or you're just playing hooky. Usually the time when you're really sick, you're like, you want the chicken noodle soup. You're kind of in and out of consciousness. And you hear that, I can't remember the music goes, but they had the hourglass. It's like through sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. And it would go into the days of our lives, and then, you'd be eating your chicken noodle soup, and then you're like, oh, I'm so sleepy. Oh, I don't want to fall asleep because I'm going to miss my Saturday afternoon cartoons. And you'd fall asleep watching Days of Our Lives and hearing about Steve and Patch, and Poseidon was later. I know Poseidon was was it? I don't remember what Poseidon. Poseidon was. My dad was obsessed with the soaps. Got to watch my soaps. Got to watch my stories. But anyways, the news and the stories and the ball game. That's to my dad. Dad's like, gotta watch the news. Gotta watch my stories. Got to watch the ball games, and then I got to watch Wink the Dink. Wink Martindale was the host of not the Family Feud, Tic Tac Dough. If you remember that, get the tick and the tack, and you get the dough. It was a crazy game show. It was on in the evening. I thought it was cool because they had the dragon. Whenever you got the wrong thing, they give you the dragon. It reminded me of Dark Tower, but anyways, Wink Martindale. I used to always call him Wink the Dink. Wink the Dink, son. Let's go watch Wink the Dink. But anyway, sorry, I'm off kilter. I'm going into daytime program. Let's ignore daytime programming as much as we can. Let's go to Saturday mornings. Here's what we're looking at. So I'm going to tell you kind of what, from the best of my knowledge, what my lineup was. I used to watch. I used to get up around 7 o'clock, and 7 o'clock I would just eat. I'd eat my cereal. I'm sure people would eat their cereal while they're watching cartoons. Maybe. I more or less just got up, got my toys out, went into the living room, turned on the TV, and whatever was on. A Captain Kangaroo could have been on. I remember Tidbits. They don't show Tidbits here because they just say local programming, and I think local programming was my Tidbits. I don't know if you remember Tidbits. It was kind of like Bill Nye the Science Guy a little bit, but they had like this very sleepy-eyed looking guy, kind of looked like Joel Hodgkinson from MST3K, and he'd be on there and talking about, hey kids, if you take a balloon and you stab it and you suck it full of helium and you do drugs and snort cocaine, that type of thing. It was the 80s. So, anyways, so 8 o'clock in the morning, what would I have been watching? I could have been watching the Shirt Tales. I could have been watching the Snorks. On the different networks for Saturday morning. I probably watched either the Shirt Tales or the Snorks, or was this new? Yeah, this was new. Okay, I must have been watching, I might have been, when did this start though? So this was on in the Okay, so fall. Fall was, it might have been, yeah, I think, well, definitely I would have been watching when Super Friends started because, like I said, that was the year I got the action figures, so I would start watching the legendary Superpowers show, which was like the last of the Super Friends, the Hanna-Barbera Super Friends. They actually had gone away for a couple of years. I don't know if Challenge wasn't the last one. Was Challenge the last one? It went the one with Marvin and Wendy, the old Superman, then uh, the Wonder Twins, and then after the Wonder Twins, did it go to Challenge, or is Challenge of between Marvin and Wendy, and then or did it run simultaneous? I can't remember. I know the Wonder Twins were on the Superpowers show, so I think it might have been Marvin and Wendy's Challenge of the Super Friends, which had the Legion of Doom, and then it went into the Wonder Twins episodes, and then it continued with this. And this, like I said, this is the last of it. I think it ran 2 seasons. I think. But the legendary superpowers, which introduced Firestorm, they've been always messing with Darkseid, and because those are the action figures that are out. But yeah, so I probably was watching that. And so it shows in a whole hour. Were they playing 2 episodes back to back? I can't remember, But I know I was watching that. But I also know I caught Shirt Tail and Snorks. So probably in the off season, I'd watch Shirt Tails or Snorks. Because it looks like it moved it to the fall here. So this must have been, oh, okay, no, I see. Okay. So the fall started with Super Friends Legendary Superpowers. It probably, when it ran out in the fall, it probably, see, that doesn't make any sense because this is the 84. Oh, is this 84, 85? Okay, yeah, no, this is 84, 85. So December of 85, okay. It probably went into reruns for the first season, and then they doubled up the episodes for the in 85. So, and I'm assuming Shirt Tails was fall too. Oh, but Shirt Tails on 8. That's okay. That makes sense now. Sorry, I should have looked at this a little bit closer. So I must have caught the Snorks whatever time, but I think it was, I would watch the Shirt Tails and then Super Friends and Legendary Superpowers at 8:30, and then let's go to 9 o'clock. I was all about the Mighty Orbots. Mighty Orbots was one of my favorite cartoons. I loved Mighty Orbots. Go, Mighty Orbots! And I love the animation. It's like that was the first animation that I remember or can recall having light sourcing, as I called it. There's light sourcing, which I didn't really know what that meant, but it just meant that they would like super shade and super highlight because it was Japanese. It was made in Japan. It was essentially an anime, but they had all the light sourcing, and like when the robots went by, like all the shininess they would change all the lights. It must have been insane to animate that. But I was like, oh, it's got light sourcing, and that was one of the first ones I believe that had light sourcing because everything else was flat shaded at that time, or flat colored. So yeah, it's definitely about the Mighty Orbots. I never really watched Turbo Teen. I might have caught it a couple of times, but I never really watched it. And the reason why is because primarily, now this was a returning show because it started in '83. I would be watching Dungeons & Dragons. And see, the cool thing was, right after Dungeons & Dragons, as you see, you'd skip it and then you go to Dragon's Lair. Because Dragon's Lair, the arcade game, was out at the time, which I need to do a whole episode. I want that one-up game version of it. It's $500, and I don't really have any room for it, but I want it. I probably won't buy it. But anyways, they have a one-up games version of that now. But yeah, I was definitely Mighty Orbots. But see, then the Muppet Babies started, and I must have been an off-season. When the season, or the time of the seasons when they didn't show Mighty Orbots, I watched Muppet Babies. And then I watched the Smurfs more in '83, and as I got older, I kind of got out of the Smurfs. And then when they had Johan and Pee-wee showed up, I might have, and then they had the little Smurf kids or whatever, I might have caught it like here and there and off when the other shows weren't on. Because I remember watching it, but I didn't watch it as intently as I did that first season of Smurfs. So, because that's when they had the little figurines and stuff out, was '83. And I had too many things I had Star Wars, started G.I. Joe, Dungeons & Dragons guys. I mean, there was too much going on at once. I couldn't keep up with it all, nor could my dad's wallet. Anyways, like I said, I didn't really watch Turbo Teen that much. Schoolhouse Rock, I was kind of done with Schoolhouse Rock. They just reminded me of my sister and two, like, late 70s for me. I just didn't really pay attention to school. I mean, I knew them all. You know, the Bill and, you know, Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function? I just think of, was it Family Guy? Vagina Junction, what's your function? Something taking in sperm and spitting out baby. You know, and it's a wagon wheel, all that stuff. That's all Schoolhouse Rock. I was kind of out of that by then. A Saturday Supercade, I barely remember that. I remember being on, but I don't remember watching it that much. I think it just interfered too much with other shows that I would watch. Same thing with Rubik's Cube. I might have seen an episode here or there. I had a Rubik's Cube. Like the bunny, all this stuff, I didn't really watch any of this stuff. Alvin and the Chipmunks, I think I watched later on. Yeah, more towards like 87, because it just filled in a gap. But yeah, this year in 84, I was all about Mighty Orbots, Super Friends, the Legendary Superpowers, and Dragon's Lair. And again, you get Dungeons and Dragon's Lair back to back. It's back to back, you know, Dungeons and Dragons to me. And then what would have happened after Dragon's Lair? Now this is where I think, now I'm not 100% certain, but I remember my dad would be like, I know it was before noon, my dad would be like, hey, we gotta go grocery shopping. We'd go over to Chatham, and then of course I'd walk down to Kittyland and look for toys, or I'd go over to Rochester Book Center, look for books and comics. So I remember, I think that was right about the time my dad was like ready to go. He was just like, yeah, let's go get in the car, we gotta go grocery shopping. And I remember telling my dad, we gotta wait till my show's over. And I'm assuming that was probably Dragon's Lair. And then we'd go, and we'd only be gone for about an hour, because we'd be back before noon. And I remember coming back and then catching, at noon, these were in reruns. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends were in reruns, and then The Incredible Hulk. And then I was done. After 1 o'clock, I was out the door with my bike and gone, and I didn't come back until the evening. I mean, even in the summer, specifically. I mean, because summer I didn't really, I kind of skipped the after-school syndicated shows, you know, until school started. Once school started, because that's when Transformers started, and that's when they would, I remember they're playing we're waiting for the new G.I. Joe, which I believe was the second miniseries, Revenge of Cobra. And then He-Man was in syndication. So He-Man started in 83 in syndication, and then I remember more so paying attention to that in the fall, because you're at school. You know, you would go and you'd come home from school, and then you just watch cartoons, and then you might go outside and go bike riding, or I'd ride to the stores or stuff. Or again, at that time, summer was so this was the summer that I did all the lawn mowing too. That was more a summer thing. Because when I was at my dad's house, I played more. I mowed my dad's lawn, that was it. And he was already buying me a ton of shit, so it didn't really matter about money at that point. But it was at my mom's house, because my mom was never really home, because she worked. I was by myself, and I would get kind of restless, and then I'd also want to go out and make money. And like I said, I had the whole neighborhood, you know, tied up with all those old people mowing on their lawns. So, you know, $10 a pop, $10 a pop, $10 a pop. They're all coming in. And so, I mean, I would watch cartoons, I think, in the morning, in the summer, at my mom's. And then after, like, the last one at, like, 10 o'clock, I was out the door, you know, to the first lawn. And I didn't get finished with the lawns until the afternoon. And, you know, and then I would come home and I would catch the end of whatever syndicated shows were on the UHF stations, and then I'd wind down in the evening. Sometimes I would have to skip those shows because I'd have to get a couple of lawns done or 3 lawns done in an afternoon, just to kind of stay on schedule. But for the most part, you know, that's what I did there. You know, it's funny, you know, I look at nowadays, and it's just like, you know, I was essentially at 11 years old, I'm working for myself, and then it's like, now it's like I'm 50 and I'm working for myself and I've got action figures and watching cartoons and stuff. It's almost, like I said, I've said this a few times, the 20s for me, I know the pandemic kicked us off the 20s, but the 20s for me has been my reliving of my childhood. This is when all the new toys were coming out. Cartoons have been out for a while, but I heavily watching the old cartoons from this time period. And then, of course, my son was, he's a year off with me, so he's not exactly, I got him when I was 40. I had him when I was almost 39, so he's off as far as, he's in 6th grade now, like where I would have still been in 5th grade. So, but he's close, right? So I'm kind of reliving my childhood through my son here now in the 2020s. So I still kind of treat this is 1984 to me, and instead of mowing lawns, I'm doing comic books. So, it's kind of that's what my life's kind of become. That and my son, of course, he was here last night. He just took off for school in the bus this morning. So, and I did some work, but I'm gonna take a little break here and get this video knocked out, and then I'll go back to work. Yeah. So again, that was kind of my Saturday mornings at that time. Now, give or take, I know they show the different dates and stuff here, but, before the fall season lined up, it was just a continuation of what was going on in 83. So if it was literally 40 years ago, these new shows didn't show up yet. So I was probably that's probably when I was catching stuff that was not new. Like, I know the shirt tails were not new, so I was probably catching the shirt tails. The Snorks, I think the Snorks were new though, so I think it was shirt tails, stuff like that. The Smurfs, still Spider-Man, Amazing Friends, and Incredible Hulk, which those were, see the R next to it, so those were in reruns. So right, that makes sense. Look, shirt tails are reruns, and Snorks no R, so yeah. So I was probably watching shirt tails. Who knows? Oh, this might have been when I was watching the Muppet Babies. But see, they would have started. It says spring. I'm assuming this is the end of '84, though. They're not showing the beginning, so I don't know. I think this did show. Yeah, this definitely did start in '84, so that might not have been a thing yet. It was probably most likely because see, they don't have the R in the Smurfs, but the Smurfs weren't in rerun. Okay, I take that back. So the Smurfs weren't reruns. Smurfs were in their 2nd season, but that didn't start till the fall, so you're still catching the previous season. Okay. Sorry, it shouldn't be this complicated, but it's for some reason it's complicated. Just trying to recall things the best as I can remember. I'm probably wrong on a few of the details here, but by and large, that's what was going on for me. Let's see. Yeah, that was definitely new. Rubik and Amazing Friends and reruns. That might have been when I was catching that, most likely. Pole position. Wait, here we go. Okay, I think if it's... Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so if it's Boldface, it's a new show. So really, that wasn't new? It says from '84, though. Okay, I don't know. That's kind of weird. I was thinking that the Boldface, it should have a legend or something somewhere. The Boldface were new shows. The not Boldface would have been shows, yeah, like '83. And then if it was a rerun, meaning that there's a new season of that. And then, what was that Dracula show? But that was on a UP. It was on a syndicated show. There was this Drac Pack. I could only catch it on channel 11. And my channel 11, what do you call it? You had to set your controls for the Heart of the Sun. Make sure Saturn is not eclipsing Mars, and then you would get channel 11 would come in. And I think it was out of Chicago. I technically think it was WTBS out of Chicago, which actually became a cable station, and they used to play Drac Pack. And I always thought Drac Pack was cool because I could barely get in, and it's like, oh, it's like teens, but they're monsters, and kind of like Ghostbusters a little bit, like not the real Ghostbusters, but the Ghostbusters cartoon. But anyways, that wouldn't have been in the network shows. So yeah, Land of the Lost was in reruns. I watched that prior to '84 a lot. Mr. T, The Littles, that was another big show I used to watch a lot with The Littles. There was like one of those ones where you just get stuck watching it and you're just like, can't stop watching it. And then if it was raining or if it was winter and it was crappy out, then I would tune in and watch American Bandstand. Bandstand, bandstand, and then you knew that cartoons were over when Bandstand started. Although you could probably still catch a few of them here. And then college football would start. I think at that time my dad would be. I think that's why my dad wanted to get home at a certain time. He wanted to watch ABC Sports, which could have been a baseball. If it was summer, it was probably a baseball game. Gonna watch the ball game. Because obviously football was more Sunday and Monday night. And that, but I know my dad he liked college football more so when my sister went to University of Michigan, which she went in '83, so she was in University of Michigan at this time. I think my dad only really paid attention to the Wolverines, just because my sister went there. I don't think he was really into college football. I don't really like college football that much either. I just find it's just a shooting gallery because you're not paying these kids, right? So why, I mean, you guess you technically are if you give them scholarships, but I mean, why would I risk getting, a permanent life-altering injury or if not death? So I'm not going to jump in front of some giant dude. You know what I mean? It's just like there's no defense. It's just a shooting gallery. It's just all offense. That's why the scores are so high. So I'm not really into college football. I was into it like in '87 when the Wolverines won the Rose Bowl, which I know they just won. I know they just won the championship. But my sister was in college at that time. She graduated in '87 from U of M, so I was kind of into it. But once my sister was out of U of M, and then when I went to college, I went to Oakland University. We didn't have a football team. I didn't care about college football. But I still like the NFL at this time, and obviously I like the NFL this year because it was the Bears, with McMahon and Perry and Walter Payton and all those guys are all here. I kind of talked about this in the last video, or it's not the last video, but the video on the catalogs. So that's kind of the network lineup. So let's go down to where it says, okay, so here we go, by season, returning shows. Now, this will show like Family Feud, because this is daytime TV as well, but returning shows would be like The Littles. Okay, that makes sense. So The Littles, The Puppy's Great Adventure, Rubik's Amazing, and reruns. Okay, returning reruns, okay. Sorry. Schoolhouse Rock. That's just that station. So new series on ABC. We would have had Dragon's Lair, Mighty Orbots. These are the ones that I paid attention to the most. Super Friends, Legendary Superpowers. Again, Turbo Teen I didn't really watch, and I didn't really watch Wolf Rock TV. I forgot that even existed, to tell you the truth. And then not returning. Best of Scooby-Doo gone. Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show gone. Pac-Man gone. That didn't last very long, just '83. And then the Richie Rich, the Munchie Cheese. Yeah, I didn't really watch all that. Returning shows on CBS. We had outside of. Let's not look at the game shows. So Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner, yeah. Captain Kangaroo, yeah. Dungeons and Dragons, returning show. One definitely watched. That's about it. Yeah. Land of the Lost. So maybe sometimes Shirt Tales, sure, and reruns. Like I said, I didn't really watch Saturday Super K that much. And then new series. The Muppet Babies. That was it. The Get Along Gang. Again, pole position. Pryor's. I never watched Pryor's Place. Show's gone. The Dukes. They canceled them Dukes. I didn't really watch the Dukes of Hazzard. I love the Dukes of Hazzard show, but I didn't really watch the cartoon that much. Or as my dad used to call the show, Daisy. Tim, get in here. Daisy's on. Gilligan's Planet. I watched it before. Meatballs and Spaghetti. Didn't watch that. Plastic Man. I used to love watching the Plastic Man. It was just funny. I just like watching Plastic Man. But that was in reruns, and that was gone by this time. I don't I might have seen one episode. I've never really watched Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. I watched the Flash Gordon in the Star Trek cartoon, but I don't think I really watched Tarzan. And then Tattletales, don't even know what that is, to tell you the truth. NBC, returning shows. Alvin and the Chipmunks, again, I watched that later on. Don't know, Days of Our Lives. The Incredible Hulk and reruns came back, yep. Mr. T, yeah, okay. The Smurfs. I just remember my dad. We were listening to the Beach Boys or something. Let's go surfing now. My dad's like, let's go smurfing now. Everybody's learning how to come and do the Smurf with me. He just thought it was the stupidest thing. He was just like, every time they said, let's go Smurf it, my dad's like, Smurf it. Smurf this show. That's what he'd always say. Smurf this crazy show. Why are you watching this crazy show? Spider-Man Amazing Friends, of course, watch that. And then a new series. What do we have? Nothing good. Snorks. That was about it. Snorks, maybe. I didn't watch Kid Video. Pink Panthers and something now. Well, what's gone from NBC? Thunder. That was the big thing that upset me. Is they took Thunder off. And it literally, so that's 1984. Thunder leaves. I literally had not seen Thunder the Barbarian at all because I never got it. It was never on cable. It was never into the late 80s. Early 90s, there may have been like a videotape floating around like a comic book convention, like the Motor City Comic Con. There might have been like, Thunder the Barbarian, like videotape, which is like a bootleg. Nothing. It wasn't until YouTube, literally. Once YouTube started in the 2000s, somebody started putting, not even the full episodes, just started putting pieces of Thunder, and it was like literally the first time I had seen it. And then my buddy in the 2000s, he was somewhere and he's like, I found a DVD. It's a bootleg DVD, but it's got all of the Thunder episodes on it. And I watched it with him. We watched all the Thunder episodes. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen this literally hadn't seen it since this year when it canceled. So I know it's on Blu-ray now, and I've got the Blu-ray copies of the Blu-ray versions of them, and I've seen them all. I love Thunder. Loved Thunder. I loved Ariel. Oh God, I loved Ariel. With Ukala the Mac. But that's the show's really big. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to point out now this is just list of animated shows by 1984, but this, as you can see, this will show the syndicated stuff. So, and it also tell you if it's Japan and US, it's animated in Japan or Korea or whatever. But I mean, it's still a Japanese company like Sunbow or whatever putting together the stuff for the American show. But the Mighty Orbots, 13 episodes, 84, yep. Transformers, here we go, 98 episodes. U.S. Japan, obviously, it's of Sunbow and Marvel Entertainment. But it was a syndicated show. What is it? It usually says syndicated somewhere. But yeah, that was a syndicated show. Another syndicated show that started in 84, which was big, Voltron. Now, 124 episodes. And obviously that was straight up anime that came over and they cobbled it together like Robotech. But yeah, it says includes all dubbed Lion Force episodes, all exclusive Lion Force episodes, and Vehicle Force episodes. I watched Voltron. And I watched it pretty extensively. And I believe it was, it might have been on Sunday mornings, I think, on a UHF station. And then I also think it was on after school. Or maybe it was on in the morning. I can't remember exactly. Like I said, I don't have a schedule, but I vaguely remember when Voltron was on, but I'd watch it. And I kind of got into the toys, but I didn't really get too far into them. I liked Voltron, but at the same time, I've always thought it was kind of like, to me, it was like Battle of the Planets, like G-Force, or, I liked Robotech a lot, but I just, for some reason, at that time, I didn't like anything that was Japanese. I was like, it's kind of from Japan. Even though, Transformers was from Japan, Morty Orbots from Japan, but Voltron I knew by watching it that it was a Japanese show that they dubbed and brought over, and I don't know, for some reason that turned me off. I don't know why. I wasn't like super overly prejudiced against Japan at the time, because I loved Ultraman and I loved Godzilla movies and I loved Johnny Sacco, but For some reason, and I did like G-Force a lot, but for some reason, knowing that it was Japanese, an original show in Japanese, for some reason that was a letdown to me. I don't know why. I was like feeling gypped, like, oh, we're just getting somebody's secondhand crap from another country. That's what I felt like as a kid. I know it's weird. I don't think my dad was definitely pretty prejudiced, as most dads were back in the day. But my dad, he didn't really. I don't think he influenced me because he didn't really he didn't have an opinion against Japan. He'd always just everybody who did him was a Chinaman, Chinaman, because that's what he'd say. Dad, I don't think he's from China. I think he's from Korea. No, he's a Chinaman. But my dad didn't really. He didn't. His deep seated left over from the that what do you call that generation, all that racism. He didn't really have a thing against Orientals, as he called, or Chinamen as he called them. It was kind of weird, but so that never really rubbed off on me. But for some reason, to me, it was just my own craziness. It's like I just felt like we're being gypped. Like, oh, it's from Japan, it's dubbed. Maybe because I felt like I loved Ultraman and Johnny Sacco, but at the same time I felt gypped too. I don't know. It was a weird kind of feeling. I obviously I like stuff, especially that stuff from then from Japan. I love that stuff now, and Voltron too. I just never got super into it, and I think I just felt weird about it until Robotech. Robotech's the one that kind of broke that barrier, and I was like, oh, I want to see more from Japan. Let's see what else we got. Heathcliff, yep. So Heathcliff started. That was a syndicated show. Definitely watched that. With the Cadillac Cats, too. I loved that. Heathcliff, Heathcliff, no one should terrorize your neighborhood. I feel like I just got home from school. Challenge of the GoBots. Okay, so I thought Challenge of the GoBots started... Oh, I guess that's right. I know that the toys beat the Transformers to the punch. They came out the GoBots first because Transformers had a delay in coming out. But I always thought the Challenge of the GoBots, the cartoon, came out like in 83, but I guess not. I guess it would have been... I think the toys came out in literally late 83. Because I remember having Leader 1 in 5th grade and showing Kim Zinzer, and she just made fun of me. She's like, oh great, Tim's showing me his toys now. I'm like, I hate that Kim Zinzer. Anyways, she's beautiful though. Anyways, I had Leader 1 at that time, but maybe that was because I was still in Warlock's class. Maybe that was the 84, early 84. But then Challenge of the GoBots came out, and I didn't watch Challenge of the GoBots at all until like the mornings before school when I first started at Ruther. We moved to the trailer in the winter of 1987. Because it was on in the morning. That and Brave Star. I never watched Brave Star until... Well, maybe Brave Star was the next year, but... I caught those shows in the mornings just because there was nothing else on, and I had never watched them when they first came out. So that's when I caught all the GoBot episodes. Dragon Slayer, obviously, was right on top of that in 84 on Saturday mornings. Let's say we should show Network and Syndicated. I thought it did. Kid Video, didn't really watch it. Muppet Babies, watched it a little bit. That's right, so look at my joke about, hey, if a bear takes his shoes, or puts shoes on, he still has bare feet. Oh, waka, waka, waka. That's my favorite joke from that show. Anyways, the Scooby-Doo, no. Pink Panther, Pink Panther's a weird cartoon. I mean, the original, too. It was one of those ones you just caught, like, by accident, and just, you knew it was weird. Like the Japanese thing, like, is this not American? It was French. It was like, this is not American, because these don't seem like Americans. Even though they had, like, the overly stereotypical Mexican frogs, and then they had the frogs. And what was the other one? Oh, maybe it was just the inspector with the inspector. Hey, Juju. We inspector. Pole Position. Like I said, I watched a couple episodes, never really got into it. Rainbow Bright is a girl show. I caught a couple episodes at some point. Yeah, I mean, you kind of always did. Scary Scooby Funnies. Now, Snorks I did watch. 5 episodes. Only 8 episodes made of the Superpower show. That's interesting. It must not have lasted very long, the season. Huh. I'm pretty sure they renewed it in 85. But this will be 84, 85. No, maybe it was only 8 episodes total. That's interesting. I don't remember a lot of them myself. I remember them showing, introducing Firestar. Not Firestar. Yeah, is it Firestar? No, that's the girl from Firestorm. And then, sorry, just let me check the time. All right, you're getting close to the hour. Wolf Rock TV, no. Ferdy the Ant, no. We're getting into German shows now. So the big shows, I guess, for me that were syndicated would have been, there's 3 of them, would have been Heathcliff, Transformers, and Voltron. Because like I said, I didn't watch this till later, and everything else was a network show. So that was the big thing for me. So that's my 1984, well, it's Saturday morning cartoons, but like I said, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the syndicated shows, because obviously Transformers is huge in the 80s, and so is Voltron. But, Mighty Orbots, sadly, they kind of crapped out, and they didn't get a second season. An outstanding cartoon, and it's really hard to find. I don't even think it is even available on DVD. I know they have some really shitty versions of it on YouTube, but I've not seen Mighty Orbots, like a pristine Mighty Orbots, since I watched it on a 13-inch black and white television set. Or actually, I would have watched that on the 19-inch color TV. The new one that we got from Highland Appliance there at my dad's house. And then my mom, she bought that, we did get a new color, because she, when my parents got divorced, my dad had the color console TV. My mom got a black and white 19-inch from my grandma, so her mother's basement, with a TV stand, and that's what we had at the Great Oaks Apartments. We had a black and white TV, so all the times I used to watch A-Team and all that stuff over there, in 82. That was all black and white. And my grandmother had a color television. That's why the black and white was in the basement. My grandmother had a color 19-inch. And then... and my dad had the console TV. Oh, we had that little... Oh, sorry, I take it back. We did have a little color television. We had the little 13-inch color television. We bought at this weird electronics supply store one day after we came home from somewhere, and we stopped there. It was very hot out. I remember that. And we got this TV. And then my dad had it for the longest time. No, you know what? My dad still had it in the bedroom. I remember. And then when my dad sold the house, so this would have been after this, when we sold the house, and my dad kind of... he kind of skipped town. He actually went in the hospital for a while. Long stay at the mental hospital. But anyways, my mom ended up cleaning the house out while he was gone, and then she took that color television set, and we had that at that little apartment there. But I think because this was after this time, so we already had the 19-inch. She bought a 19-inch color TV somewhere. I think a boyfriend got it for her, actually, because like I said, my mom didn't make a lot of money back then. She made the $5 an hour. Technically, if I mowed a lawn and it took me an hour to mow a lawn for $10, even though I didn't get 40 hours a week, well, close to 40 hours. I did about 3-4 lawns a day, Monday through Friday. I technically made as much as my mom did when I was 11. And I didn't pay any taxes because, it's a kid mowing lawn. You didn't declare that in taxes. So technically, I think if you were to consider not paying the taxes on it, I think I made about as much as my mom did. Now, my mom got more money because she got the Social Security for me at the time until I turned 18. So she got the extra. It was like an extra $800 a month. So obviously she had more money there than me. But if you're thinking about the job, she worked like 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, like 9 to 5, or maybe it was like 8 to 5, and she made $5. She might even make, when she first started, she might even been less than $5 an hour. So I was actually making more money or the same amount of money as my mom when I was 11. Now, granted, it was just for the summer, because I didn't make as much when I shoveled snow in the winter. and I could only do that on snow days or if I played hooky to go shovel snow. But yeah, so that's just weird to think about. So I know she ended up having that television. I think she did have a boyfriend named Jerry Janabit, and I remember I think he ended up buying the TV for her. It was supposed to be for us because he gave her that whole section, that little thing that came out of his daughter's room that they put in my little like room, just kind of a weird room. It was like just like a secondary living room, which is my room, because there was no door. It was just like an open area, and it had like a twin bed and two twin beds, and then a corner unit. It's all yellow, and two twin beds, which doubled as couches. They had like couch backings, and they took the couch backings off, and it became two twin beds in the corner. There's a window here, and then there's a closet here, and then my mom had this old mantle or fireplace that we put there, and then the orange chair was there, and then that was my bed. In the corner, we had the 19-inch color television up, because I was the primary. My mom would either sit in the orange chair and watch it, or I would sit on that little, use it as a couch during the day, and at night I'd use it as a bed. And I'd watch Transformers Sunday mornings, remember that? I remember watching the Gummy Bears sitting there at this time. When I was at my mom, most of the time on the weekends, though, I was at my dad's. I mean, almost every weekend I'd be at my dad's. Because my mom would be gone all weekend. She'd be gone. Like, literally, she'd get out of work at 5 o'clock on Friday, and you didn't see her until, like, late Sunday evening. She'd come home, fall asleep, and she didn't even sleep in. There was another bedroom that my sister kind of slept in when she was home from college, but my mom filled it with junk that she couldn't even get the door open, and then she just slept on a love seat, like right next in the main part of the living room. She slept in the love seat there, and she would just come home and crash Sunday night, and then wake up before me and go to work on Monday morning, and then I wouldn't see her. If it was summer, let's say, or school. I wouldn't see her until after school, and then she would go. She had like Tuesday night, she'd go to her sorority sisters. Thursday night, she'd go to PWP, or PW Poop, as her mom, my grandma, would call it, the Parents Without Partners, because she's looking for a new husband. So, PW Poop, and then, so Wednesday night, she golfed Wednesday night. She went golfing with her friends Wednesday night. Monday night is about the only, and she usually came home and crashed because she got no sleep over the weekend. She'd fall asleep in the orange chair there, and then I really never saw my mom for the most part, And on the weekends I go to my dad's. My dad didn't work, so he was with me the whole weekend, or I was out playing and riding my bike and gone, so I didn't see my mom all that much. That little tiny apartment was essentially like this. It was just my apartment. I mean, my mom just happened to be there once in a while. But some weekends, I think my dad was gone. He was either in the hospital again, or something was going on with that. And then, so there were times when I did come home. But it was usually weird. I usually felt strange being at my mom's house on the weekends, because she'd be gone. So I would be there essentially by myself. And then my grandma lived down the street, and she'd come down, and she'd be all pissed off. "Where's your goddamn mother at?" Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's just crazy. Literally, it's like like I said, my son's that age right now. So you take my son's childhood, right? I know he's got a man-child for a father, but at least I'm always there, right? And I don't drink, and I'm not crazy like my dad was. And then his mom works all the time, but his mom's still there for him. So my childhood is just all fucked up in comparison to my son. My son's got a definitely better childhood than I do. All right, so let's end it on that. Because we're at the top of the hour. So I'm gonna do more 1984, kind of like celebrating 40 years anniversaries, and I think I'm gonna do one on the movies of 1984, and I'm gonna do like the 50 most popular movies of 1984, Ghostbuster. So we'll do that, and then and I'll tell you my stories of some of the movies, and I'll tell you what I saw in the theater, what I saw on cable, that type of thing, and then I'll talk about I'll do albums, music albums. So the top 50 music albums. I got a couple of websites that are, IMDb is where I got the movie one. That's going on popularity ratings. So. And then the album one I kind of agree with. Maybe there might be an album here or there that either belongs in the list or not. But for the most part, the album top 50 is 84. I mean, this is a big year for music. So Van Halen, 1984, the Power Slave. There's a lot of them. I'll get into them in that video. So I'm going to do those two videos. And then I did the action figures that are turning, and I kind of touched about a little bit on that on the catalog, the Christmas catalog. So outside of that, I don't think there's much else to talk about with that. I could do role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons stuff maybe, but the primary stuff, movies, Saturday morning cartoons or syndicated cartoons, and albums. And toys. Those are pretty much the biggest things in my life in 1984. But alright, so I'll end it on that, and I'll see you on the next one. Alright, talk to you then. Bye-bye.